Did you know that we have a forgotten history? History is based on written documents. And the documents we call written, very recent history. So it is not very old. The first written documents were written by the Sumerians 2,000, 3,000 years ago, but actually history didn't start then. The beginning of history goes back much further. What we call writing is not alphabetical writing. They thought it was. That is, it is accepted as writing written in alphabetical letters. Writing started with pictures. The beginning of writing is rock paintings. Rock paintings started in Asia. And these are called petroglyphs. Petra means stone. Glyph means letter. When we combine the two, petroglyph means stone letter. This means that the first writings on rocks were pictographs. And these were also called petroglyphs. In other words, they were examples of writing. Petroglyphs first started in Asia. And then the people who migrated from there, we continue to see these writings in different forms in the regions where they were scattered. The scripts used by the Turks can be seen in this table. We see the table now. The first form of writing is called semiotic writing. In other words, these are essentially pictorial and symbolic writings. In order to decipher and reveal their meaning, we first need to know that culture. In other words, we need to know the culture that painted those pictures on the rocks to understand and know what they believed in, what they valued. Otherwise, those paintings are a mystery to us. They are a secret and we cannot explain them. We just see them as beautiful paintings and that's it. However, if we define the culture that drew the paintings, it will be easy to interpret them. From this point of view, if we look at the stages of writing, the first type of writing is pictographic writing, which is called pictographic writing, or semiotic writing. Since pictographism is writing in graph, pictographic is also pictorial writing. With the development, symbolization, and abstraction of these in Central Asia, stamp writing emerged. Stamp writing is a slightly more simplified, I won't say abstracted form of pictographic writing. And after the stamp script, word script, Hiki script, and finally letter script developed. Therefore, the letters we use today were developed much, much later. And it is, of course, possible to go into the origins of these. But for now, after knowing these, we need to talk about the concepts of pictography in order to understand the development in this picture. These concepts are the beliefs of the people of Asia in particular. There were certain beings that they considered sacred. These were first and foremost the sun. The sun was very sacred for them, quite naturally because they lived in a cold region. When the day lightened and the sun came out, the environment warmed up and predators would retreat to their lairs. In this respect, the sun was really important for them, and they considered it sacred. The first sacredness they started with was the sun. Then the moon, because the moon illuminated the environment a little bit at night, they gave the moon a term. And after that, every being that rises towards the sun became sacred to them. For example, the mountains. And then birds flying towards it and mountain goats climbing the mountains. All these are expressions of a belief, a cult, as part of that belief system. And what we call a cult is essentially the religious or belief part of a culture. And so if you ask them what they did was to carve the sun cult into the rocks, to express it pictorially, to tell about it. People who believed in the sun cult attached great importance to the ibex. And why did they care about it? What was special about the ibex? First of all, the ibex is a very agile animal, and it is difficult to hunt. In fact, they not only considered the ibex sacred, but also hunted it, because goat meat was eaten, but it was so difficult to hunt that there were no rifles or pistols. With what? They hunted with bow and arrow. And until the bow and arrow reached them, the mountain goat was a very agile animal. It would jump from rock to rock, and it was very difficult to catch. They cared for it. So they realized what a special animal the ibex was. The deer was the next animal they valued. Deer, the animal we call antlered deer. In fact, it is also a very fast, hard-to-hunt animal, and they gave it a lot of importance. And wolves, of course. Since wolves also hunt in packs, they almost paired themselves with wolves, because they also hunted in groups. At that time, people didn't hunt alone. For example, it was not easy to hunt a mountain goat. When they hunted in groups, if one missed, the other would catch it. In this way, they identified themselves with wolves. The people of Asia drew these animals on rocks to show how much importance they attached to them. They drew hundreds or even thousands of these pictures. Where? For example, in the Altai Mountains, in the hills of Mongolia, and also in Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan in the high plateaus, we find hundreds of these drawings. For example, there is a place called Saymalitasht in Kyrgyzstan. In Saymalitasht, we will see an incredible number of mountain goats and similar drawings. So there are now. Here I'm showing you a few sample pictures, and I would like to say that most of them were actually taken in the high plateaus in Asia. And among these rock paintings, there is one that shows the sanctification or integration of man with the sun. As I told you, these people attached so much importance to the sun that the sun was the ruler of the human being. They saw the ruler, not every human being, but the ruler as the representative of the sun on earth, or as its symbol, as a kind of equivalent of the sun. Here is the sun god. For example, in Japan, the king, the emperor, is still referred to as the son of the sun. Therefore, since they come from Asia, the sun has a very important place in the beliefs of the Japanese. And from this point of view, the paintings become simpler and symbolized over time. These paintings were first called tamga. What does tamga mean? It means a complete concept. Within the rock painting, there is a holistic picture expression that expresses all kinds of beliefs together. That's why we call it pictographic painting. So we call it rock painting or semiotic expression. Semiotic expressions are expressions and concepts that we cannot explain with words, but we can understand visually. Over time, this concept of tamga turned into a stamp with the transformation of TD, so we call them stamps today. They also express the sun as a circle. Since the sun is a circle that appears in the sky, they also drew this circle on the rocks. And how do we know that it is the sun? They expressed and showed it with a rock painting, which they expressed with their rays and illumination of the four directions. Here you see a picture of the sun, as you can see here. It is a sun that illuminates all around this circle. Therefore, there is a plus sign indicating the four directions. So the four directions are also the rulers. So the person who is the representative of the sun here on earth is the leader. This person is also the ruler of all four directions. That's why they chose such a symbol to represent the sun, man, and all the illumination and the four directions. And they drew this symbol everywhere. They drew this symbol in the regions they visited. So you can see this symbol incredibly in Anatolia, in Asia, in America, even in Europe. Because these people did not stay in one place. They migrated after a certain period. So, people from Asia drew this stamp everywhere where they went. And here I want to show you some examples. In Saymalitasht, Kyrgyzstan, there are circular shapes drawn on rocks that can still be seen today. The plus sign in the center of these shapes also indicates the leader, because if you pay attention, you can also see a person on the right side of this circle. So both the leader and the plus sign, you could even say the sky god who controls everything. Therefore, we see this not only in Asia but also in Anatolia. In Çatalhöyük, for example, Çatalhöyük is 7,000 years before Christ. In other words, this is a culture that developed there about 9,000 years ago. They built buildings, houses, they drew sculptures. And this culture was actually a matriarchal culture. In a matriarchal culture, the sun is very important. And the bottom picture you see here on the left can still be seen on the walls in Çatalhöyük even today. Of course, it may have been erased in time, or it may be in a faded state, but at least we see pictures that express this in this way. For example, these people also went to America, and they did the same thing in America. Utah. Utah is a state in America. There you see the circle with two plus signs inside each other, and they drew a deer. So they carried the concepts of deer and mountain goat all the way there. The other picture you see on the right at the bottom is in Uzbekistan. We see the same thing. Look, if these two paintings, rock paintings in America and in Asia, in Uzbekistan, are exactly the same, we must accept them as the continuation of the same people, the same culture, the same belief. The Mayans, for example, are in Central America. In the calendar of the Mayans, you see that there is a god in the center, and there are 4 squares indicating 4 directions. So the same thing, this is the sun god. After that, as you can see on the right in the Maya, again in the Maya, that is in Central America, in the region of burden throwing, there is a plus sign inside the circle, and dot by dot, they have indicated the rays of the sun in this way. Arizona is Central America in America, the middle region of North America. As you can see there, I won't say later, but at least a 4-legged animal next to an animal, because that's what you see in the middle. You can also see the sun, and they have also indicated the sun rays point by point. In fact, in a vase of yeast, you see the plus sign in the center again, and 2 circles inside the circle. And around it, the rays are clearly defined. Navajo Indians. These are the indigenous people of America. In their beliefs, the plus sign is also seen inside 2 circles. Now, if you move from here to Anatolia, in Anatolia, 10,000 years before Christ, 12,000 years before today, I am speaking approximately, they built temples. These are some very interesting temples in Urfa, just east of Urfa. There are 12 such circular structures there. Not one, but 12 structures and maybe more. They are built side by side, and some of them are built on top of each other. You can see a picture of one of them. This is the drawing, of course. There are 2 high poles in the center, which indicate people, and there are 2 concentric circles. I believe this concentric circle is related to the cult of the sun, just as you have just seen. And we have to accept that these people worship the sun, or at least cared about the sun. What is going on? Why did these people spread all over Asia? Because the Ice Age started. The Ice Age started 30,000 years ago and ended 16,000 years ago. So it was a major ice age that lasted for about 15,000, 17,000 years. So when the glaciers descended from the North Pole towards Asia, towards Central Asia, it became an uninhabitable region. Things there, different animals started to flee because there was no more grass. When people could no longer find anything to hunt, they scattered and migrations began. As a result of these migrations, people went in all directions. They also went to Anatolia. They also crossed the Bering Strait to America. Therefore, this event is very important because a change in temperature leads to very important changes. You can see a change of 6 degrees in this picture. As a result of a change of 6 degrees, this graph shows very well how the climate has changed in 20,000 years. This graph was officially drawn by experts, and the end of the Ice Age was 16,000 years ago. As you can see from this picture, 16,000 years ago, when the glaciers suddenly melted and disappeared, the temperature suddenly rose, and it was a very rapid rise. After that, there were periodic ups and downs again, and we came to where we are today. On this map, you can see the migration routes of the people who migrated from Asia. They passed through the Bering Strait and went from Asia to America. Then they came to Europe, came to Anatolia, and landed in the Indus Valley. The Indus Valley is a very ancient region between Pakistan and India. They found writings there. They found tablets with drawings of mountain goats, cows, and different animals. And there is also a writing there. They still have not been able to decipher that writing today. Now that I have summarized this so far, let me briefly tell you about my own book. I have a book on this subject called The Traces of Asian Culture in the World. You will find what I have told you in much more detail there. Thank you.